Hey guys, welcome back to Jardin Autoworks. If you like working on cars, if you like looking at cars, if you like doing modifications and fabrication, you have come to the right place. Make sure and hit that like and subscribe button for more content. Today we're going to be working on the Red Buggy. We're going to be plumbing the radiator, so let's get to it. So today we're going to be doing the plumbing for the radiator. We're going to mock the radiator up in its new location. We're going to get out the copper pipe. We're going to cut some pipe and just kind of test fit it in different locations, see what looks good, see what we can hide, how much support bracketing we're going to need to make sure that it doesn't bounce around or bend. Let's mock the radiator up and then get the pipe out. Just thinking about this upper radiator hose or radiator tube. I know that we've got to span the length of the motor here, so but we need to leave a little bit of room for the 90s and some of the bends that we've got going on here. So I'm thinking if we go 22 inches long, so that would span the length of the block. And then we could move it back and forth to try and get it to where we wanted it. But what that would do is that would give us the long straight piece to build from, to start putting the angles on it, and then find out how we can hard pipe from within a couple inches of the outlet for the thermostat housing. And then also make the bends necessary to get it up to the upper radiator hose location to within a couple inches. I need to be able to disconnect the radiator hose, but I also don't want the copper tube close enough to where I can't get the radiator out. So I'm thinking, if it's a couple inches back so that I can undo the upper mounts and kind of swing the radiator back about an inch, I think I can wiggle him out of his spot there. So we're going to start with a 22-inch piece of copper tube, and then we'll get the 90s out and just kind of play with how all of the bends look and go from there. The main tube, because we have an outlet that's facing straight up, we just come straight up with it and then across and level with the top of the motor. And I'm thinking that if we got some bolts that were a little longer, or maybe even just tapped into the back side of these bolts for a mounting bracket, we could put a mounting bracket there just above the throttle body, have something so that we could clamp it down, and then from there we do a 90 off the end of that pipe, come up slightly with a straight piece of pipe and then a hard 90 right into the upper radiator hose location. So I think this is going to work. I'll have to make the bracket right now so that we can hard mount this line and then work to it so that we can measure all of our other pieces and make that work. And then we'll take it all back apart once we have the layout, and then we'll solder it. So I'm thinking maybe a piece of angle might work, because that'll give a backstop to a side of the pipe, and then it'll let the bottom of the pipe rest on the bottom of that angle, so that when we clamp it, it'll clamp tight into the corner, and that piece of angle will be hidden by the pipe itself. But I think right now, what we can do is we can cut that piece of angle and then use these two throttle body mounting bolts for as the location it bolts onto the motor here. And we can start with that. Got into the scrap metal bin, and we don't want to waste anything. Metal's getting kind of expensive. So I've got some grinding to do, and I think we can save this piece and we'll chop it into the lengths we need. Alright, I think that'll work pretty good. The angle is hidden behind the pipe. I think that's about the right size that we're going to need. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to measure the width of the throttle body and the throttle linkage so that I can span that entire width with this support bracket. Then we'll cut them down to size. We'll weld the two halves, or we'll weld halves of these together so that I've got a space to bolt to, and then I've also got the area so that I can put some kind of clamping structure over the top of the pipe on either end so that we support it throughout and over the throttle body. We want it to span across the throttle body itself and then over where the EGR used to be on this side here. So we want it to span this entire length for support, but we only need the throttle body width for the mounting bracket so that I can drill the holes in there in the mounting bracket and then run these two bolts back through it to hold it up and off of the throttle body itself. So what we've got is a 4-inch mounting plate for the throttle body, and then we want to go like say 10 inches in total support length so that we can clamp it on either end. So between 3 and 7 inches is where that mounting bracket would go so that we can mount it up to the throttle body. 10 inches overall so that we can have a location where we can clamp the pipe onto the angle iron. So in order to start to get its shape, we're going to put it right where it needs to go, and then just start a scribe line where we need to mark it out. Alright, rather than spending a bazillion hours watching me grind on a bracket, I went ahead and cut out the bracket so that now it fits up in there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to bolt them in. Oh, mistake. I put this guy in backwards. Oh, I probably cut him backwards too. Oh man. Alright, hopefully we can make him work. Let's see what happens. Okay. So, if you can see on the on the front side mount there, I've got to chop that down just a little bit more so that it goes into the hole, or that it aligns with the hole. So I'll be right back. Alright, let's try this. Let's see if we can't do any better here. Alright, a little easier to screw in there, so let's drive it home. Okay. Now we want to span the EGR block-off plate and the throttle linkage. About there is kind of where we want it. We're going to weld this in a couple of different spots, and then the pipe will run in the angle and be able to be supported across the throttle linkage and the EGR blockout plate. It'll also provide some stability for the corners also. We've got the bracket made. We welded it up. Now we're going to bolt it on and then fit the pipe in there, so then we can kind of figure out where we want the pipe ultimately and start laying out the bends and where we want those to be. So as we lay the pipe in there, we're kind of looking where it is in relation to the radiator in case I need to take the radiator out. And if we stand it up, we could probably get it out from that side over there. So we come out with a straight pipe for some distance and then go right into the, do another 90 into the upper part of the radiator. So we'll measure from where the flared part of the fitting is, where the pipe would bottom out, to where the pipe would bottom out in the upper flange here. And roughly we'll go 4 1/8. Alright, sorry guys, I got a little excited, and so what I did was I cut a piece of tube that 4 1/8 inches and then put the end on it and then lined it up with the upper inlet on the tank here on the radiator. Once I did that so that it's perfectly lined up, so that it's a straight shot with my hose from there to there, I marked the position, how deep the pipe was inside the flange or the flared end. And then I also marked the angle where the 90s would hit on this pipe. So when we go back together with it, or when I end up soldering it, I've got some marks that I can hold to. So this side is done for the upper. We'll come over to the thermostat housing side. We've got to go from here to the thermostat. So we'll get another 90, come off of here, and then measure out what we need to be to get there. So I measured out from the center line of our main tube, our long tube, over to the center line of the thermostat housing. I needed 4 inches in between the bends, and then 4.5 to get as close as I did down here, which is about it's about 2 inches, 1.5 inches. I think that lays out that upper tube. We got all the tubes cut and laid out the way we want them, so that there's just a couple inches between the thermostat housing and the coolant tube. And then up front we have just a couple inches between the upper radiator entry point and our copper tube. So what that's going to allow us to do is put a little bit of radiator hose between them and use that radiator hose as part of the stability of the whole thing, along with the bracket that we made here in the middle on the throttle body. I found myself staring at the job here for about 10 minutes or so, and when that happens, it's time to shut it down. It's about 11 o'clock in the evening. But when you find yourself just staring at a project and just thinking of all of the different ways you can get it done, it's time to just cool it, shut it down, put away the tools, and then go inside and get a good night's rest and come out and hit it hard the next day. I found that if I find myself spending that kind of time just staring at stuff and then trying to do something, I either make a big mistake, wasting a lot of material, or and it has happened where you get hurt, maybe a nick or something, but it causes body damage. Maybe not severe, but still enough to hurt. So it's time to go in. So I think I'm going to end it here. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Jardin Autoworks. Thanks.